Welcome to Seggs Talk Radio, a podcast that explores sex, kink, and intimacy through candid conversations with sex workers, researchers, and voices shaping the conversations on sexuality. This episode is brought to you by Testy, a sexual health company I founded launching early 2026, which will revolutionize same-day walk-in STI testing. Head to testy.co to get on the waitlist and get a discount on your first panel. So today we're going to talk about like 4 or 5 of the biggest Hollywood sex work scandals. Then we're going to talk about the whorearchy, which we will explain. And then we're going to talk about some gray area sex work stuff. So kind of like the WhatsApp group, the yachting thing, and some prominent names that you will know. Welcome to Seggs Talk Radio. This is a special episode, a unique episode. I'm here with Coral Osborne.
Guilty.
And we're going to nerd out about Hollywood's biggest sex work scandals. We're going to get into the psychology of it. We're going to get into the facts. And I think a big theme is that we'll be exploring kind of the views of sex work, the societal views. I think it's shifted a lot since some of these scandals happened in the 1990s and early 2000s. Yeah, do you want to share a little bit about what inspired you to do this? We both kind of...
Yeah, so we've been nerding out on this for a long time. This is going to be a very condensed conversation because we could go on for days.
Yeah.
But yeah, Thea and I started talking about how just East Coast to West Coast, how vastly different like sex work is in every region. And I lived in LA for years, and that's where I first got into sex work, and it was an entirely different culture than what it is in, say, New York with the out, open, autonomous, sex worker, like the rah, we're standing for our rights. Very much so in Hollywood, it's like this undercurrent, which is so pervasive everywhere. So no one's really out, but it's such a prevalent theme. Yeah. And, you would be surprised to know like how many sex workers are your sisters, your, mothers, your girlfriends, your teachers. And it's so interesting because everyone's just very closeted there. And then I just, part of probably the reason I got into sex work in the first place is like, I would just nerd out on this stuff as like a teenager. Like,
what do you mean?
Well, I would just hear about these scandals and something about it was so compelling because, you hear about the, like, which we'll get into, like the Elliot Spitzer scandal, or various other politicians or, high figures in society. And I was always like, wow, these women must have so much access and so much intel. Something about that was so intriguing to me.
Yeah.
And then, eventually when I got into sex work, the shoulders that the people that you rub shoulders with, it's pretty crazy. And so the influence that sex workers have, whether that's in policy or that's, like with your doctor, or like, it's just, there's so much there that, again, these people would never intersect with you in the real world. And that was certainly my experience. So yeah, we kind of dig into that and really excited.
And going back to the difference between LA and New York, you shared something with me how there are these like WhatsApp group chats basically where people find clients, but it's not really like escort ad booking client. Like there are these kind of undercurrent ways for people to hire and seek out sex work that is very different in California.
Yeah. So there are, of course, the regular bookers as well. But then there's these WhatsApp chats that have, upwards of like 200, 300, 400 women. And the women that are on there are all influencers or models. So none of them are actually listed on like a tryst or an escort site. So it's kind of this hiding in plain sight where the booker who runs the chat would be like, here's the client, gives the descriptor of the profile, of course, not the name or anything. And then all the women just submit their Instagram profiles.
Wow.
So it's like it's really interesting because they'll never really get busted because they're unlisted, right? And I had no idea when I first moved to LA. I'm Canadian, and I moved there for the first time. What was that, like 12 years ago or something? And I'm like looking around. I'm like, wow, all these women, like they just post photos on Instagram and they're making bank. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like I was in my early mid-20s or something around that same time. And I'm like, you know, what's happening? And I told you this already, but my friend was dating this private chef.
A male friend.
Male friend, yeah. And he found out that she was like a 10 grand a night Dubai girl, that she was like living this double life.
How do you get away with going to Dubai?
Like literally just lie. And that's the other thing. You know, the LA high class escort, just they live double lives. That's the predominant theme. The higher class escorts just completely, you know, they'll have relationships and their boyfriends won't have a clue. Yeah. Or in my opinion, they'll kind of know, and it's like
don't ask, don't tell.
It's just not. It's a toxic dynamic. And so I saw the car she was driving and the house she was living in, and my company, my startup had just gone under. And I was like, I want to be a private chef. I want to do that. And I literally went to culinary school only to find out that she was a 10 grand a night Dubai girl. And like, this is where she made all of her money.
Did you actually make that decision to go because you thought it would be really like lucrative?
Well, I had to pay off debt from my partner, my business partner, embezzling funds from the company, which is fun. You know, that was the first thing. But then I was like, yeah, I want to like, wow, I can finally not use my brain and check out and do something like, you know, where I could just be present. And I'd always loved cooking. But yeah, I was like, I can make a real living doing this. Perfect. Like,
I feel like there's a very specific niche of Instagram model that they do not have OnlyFans and they are not outwardly sex workers. But it's always confused me, and it's a very specific breed because they don't have an OnlyFans. It's like, what do they do?
No, and I know of a few, and I'm thinking of one who was a close friend and we're no longer friends, where she would like outwardly, you know, go on Instagram and bash OnlyFans like creators. Yeah. And not really bash, just say, you know, that I would never do that. That's not for me. Oh, and I'm like, dude, you're living a complete double life. Yeah. And I'm like, how, like, whoa. And I'll also say, you know, before I was open, I lived a double life, right? I was sure, but I wasn't one of the WhatsApp girls because I didn't even know that existed at the time. I found out way later. But I was never in a relationship. In fact, it just made me more of a recluse, and it's very lonely because I just didn't want to tell anybody, not a soul, no friend, nothing, no one. And then it's funny because as I was in LA longer, I realized, you know, how many women were doing this, and like, you know, and then I like just so many from different groups, you know, from different social circles. And a lot of them now have gone on to marry very wealthy men. So it actually worked out to their favor. Or very, very high profile. They're with like very high profile men who now know. And like whether or not they met them through that context, you know, I think it's interesting because there's some high profile men, which we'll dig into, that feel safer and seen by an escort than they do dating in the real world.
Totally.
Right?
Well, both can keep secrets.
Yeah.
I think that's a component of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about like 4 or 5 of the biggest Hollywood sex work scandals. Then we're going to talk about the whorearchy, which we will explain. And then we're going to talk about some gray area sex work stuff. So kind of like the WhatsApp group, the yachting thing, and some prominent names that you will know. So a couple other points that I have down we wanted to chat about. Could you speak a little bit to kind of this like Hollywood tabloids personification, or like how they represent sex work? And when we think of like Charlie Sheen and Lamar Odin, that it's all related to like sex and benders and like the most extreme
crack
shit.
Benders and cocaine and like street level sex work and just like morally, you know, deficit individuals. And I mean, I'll say like, I think I maybe had a couple drinks like 20% of the time I saw clients. Like I was dead sober. Like I didn't need to be on drugs to make those decisions, for better or for worse, you know? But how it's portrayed in media, I mean, we've come a long way for sure. But it's like you hear about the Charlie Sheens, the Lamar Odins, the Hugh Grants, and it's like, oh, super seedy in a car, like 5-day drug bender. Right. And also there is a lot of that in LA, which I find interesting because it's less regulated as an industry, even though it's not legal here either, but there's so many communities and support groups in like New York, and the women are just much more open.
Yeah, that's
and like very supportive of sex work in general. Whereas there, it doesn't exist, right? Because everyone's closeted. So that's where it gets tricky. Like
most people are closeted.
Yeah. Well, but they're not talking to each other. I'm saying the girls aren't even talking to each other.
Yeah, there's this community element.
Yeah. And so that's where, the party benders like happen. And I know a lot of that. I could never do that. Ever, ever, ever. I'd rather die.
Yeah.
Like, that's not for me.
Right.
But I know a ton of women, they would do the Vegas trips and like be expected to stay up for like 2-3 days and do a bunch of drugs. And that was just never for me. So yes, that exists.
Right.
But that's not the vast majority of the experience at all. It's actually like, it can be quite mundane and like as normal as eating a freaking sandwich at lunch. It's like, okay, let's go by the hotel and have like a nice little 45-minute chat. There's 15 minutes and like, have a good day. Coffee. Like,
for sure. And I mean, at the end of the day, like the more extreme something is, the more it sells from a media standpoint. So the drug-induced insane sex party bender is going to do better in the media than just
exactly.
Like, it was a sane, chill, consensual, sober exchange,
which is boring
transaction. It is. Yeah. And one other thing to touch on is you like to say that money is the great equalizer in these situations. Can you chat a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, in LA, there were a lot of women, like the one I just named. She now has a villa in Italy, like
not named, mentioned.
Yeah. There are a lot of women that made a lot of money from this, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'd be on retainers with like high profile clients as well. They're just really good at playing the game.
Yeah.
So, and everyone knows, but no one talks about it. They they interact with like high society. They're at New York Fashion Week. They're at Cannes. They're at all these like huge international events. And because like they own their houses, they own their cars. Like they have a villa in Italy. It's no one cares. It's really bizarre.
And no one even thinks of it as sex work. Like it's not even categorized.
No one thinks about it. Yeah. But like if you're mid-level, then people feel like they're entitled to your truth, and they'll talk about it like, well, you know what she does, or like, what does she really do, blah, blah, blah. But like the more money you make, the less people give a shit, which, we'll start talking about hypergamy at some point too, because that factors in. So yeah, money is the great equalizer. Like hush money, right? Like people just shut up, and then money like grants you status. So yeah.
Okay, so let's get into our first scandal. Okay, so we're going to talk about Ashley Dupree first, who is actually Alex Earl's stepmom, who's a very popular influencer. They don't have a huge age difference between them, though, like to keep in mind, and I'll explain what that is in a bit. But she's quite young, like maybe closer to Alex's age than her husband.
She's like, but like 30.
I get into it somewhere in here. But okay, so we're going to give you a little bit of tea, and then we're going to debrief on all of these. So Ashley Dupree was an aspiring singer in Manhattan. Dupree began escorting in the mid-2000s, including working with services like NY Confidential and eventually the Emperor's Club VIP. Emperor's Club VIP was a high-end escort agency that marketed itself as an elite international introduction service for wealthy and powerful clients. So a little bit more background on Emperor's Club. Their website, taken down post-bust, ranked women by star level, with 4 diamond women charging $1,000 or more an hour, and 7 diamond companions costing upwards of $5,500 an hour. This is pre-Fosta Sesta, and like the girls that was so
I was blown away by that. I was like, what?
It's a theme throughout all of our scandals. Is the amount they were making then in these high and agencies was way more than people make now.
Yeah.
The club included governors, executives, and likely political donors. Elliot Spitzer was famously named client number 9. The club was brought down in 2008 after a federal investigation into money laundering and prostitution. The bust revealed massive wire transfers and encrypted communications. On February 13th, 2008, Dupree, aged 22, traveled to Washington, D.C. from Washington, D.C. to NYC to meet New York Governor Elliot Spitzer at the Mayflower Hotel. The encounter was arranged through wiretapped calls by the FBI. Damn.
Yeah.
She was reportedly paid $4,300 in cash, a fee that included a deposit for future services. On March 10th, 2008, the New York Times published details from FBI wiretaps. By March 12th, Dupree was publicly identified as Kristen, and Spitzer announced his resignation following the backlash. Dupree spoke to the New York Times and said she did not want to be seen as a monster, calling her experience difficult and complicated. Following the scandal, she received immunity to testify against the Emperor's Club VIP operator. In July 2008, while still married to Alyssa Earle, New Jersey businessman Thomas T.J. Earle began an affair with Ashley Dupree, the same escort at the center of the Elliot Spitzer scandal. But according to multiple reports, Ashley Dupree was allegedly still working as an escort when she met Thomas T.J. Earle, who later became her husband. Alex Earle, who was in elementary school at the time, vividly recalls paparazzi storming their home and learning about the affair first through social media. Ashley Dupree would have been about 23 when she got involved with Alex Earle's dad and married him at age 28 in 2013, and they now have 3 children together. Alex remembers being frustrated and resentful towards Ashley, saying she had been respectful despite wanting to rip her head off as a child. But over the years, that tension transformed into genuine closeness, and today they share a warm, even sisterly friendship within their blended family. So that is the tea on Ashley Dupree, the Emperor's Club VIP, and Elliot Spitzer. The first thing that jumps out to me is like, she was 22.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's so young.
Yeah.
And she was just trying to work. Like, nobody wants to be the front and center. I mean, maybe a few people, but she didn't want to be the front and center of this entire scandal.
No. And I watched an interview with her on Diane Sawyer yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
It was horrific what Diane Sawyer was saying to her. She was basically like when I say prostitute, she's like escort. She's like, you're a prostitute. She's like, what's the difference? Like, it's just, she's like, well, an escort means like more companionship. She's like, you're selling your body. Do you think that's okay? I'm like, okay, Diane, shut the hell up.
Like, do we need to shame everyone?
Yeah,
I mean,
and
that's how things were at this time. Though.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah.
Which, and again, I always come back to, was Ashley in a relationship? Was she married? Was she No. She was providing service. She was like, very young, yes, but a lot of women are when they enter it. And then she was expected to like repent for her sins on television, when it's like, I can name so many other things that people do on a very regular basis that are far worse morally than that, Yes. That's the bizarre part.
The other thing that jumps out is nowhere that I searched could I find that TJ Earle hired her as a sex worker, but one could assume that's maybe what happened. Allegedly, we got to be careful with our words. But like the timing of it, there were multiple people that alleged that she was still working as an escort when she met him, and given that he was married at the time, it would make sense that he was, seeking that outside of his relationship. But I do think it's interesting that, and maybe news outlets just couldn't find proof of that. But for some reason, I think because her initial scandal, like she's been a part of basically 2 scandals, was so salacious, for some reason she was almost like maybe protected from the second one by just being seen as like, or like, now they're dating, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been transactional. Like, she's just now marrying this guy.
Yeah, and he's a good-looking man.
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. I couldn't find proof of that, but one could assume. And I also think it's kind of like good. Well, not good for TJ for, cheating on his wife, but like it takes a lot of strength to like be like, I'm going to stick with this woman regardless of if we started as a client and a sex worker, and regardless of her past. Like, that's a lot of baggage. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think there's a couple types of clients or men.
Sure.
You could look at it through a couple different lenses. Yeah. Like, yes, I'm going to stick with her. I love this woman as an individual. Or it's like they fetishize you, right? Obviously, they're married, so it's the real deal. They have 3 kids, right? But I have some girlfriends who, end up falling for a client, and then you kind of realize that these men only date escorts, and they get off on like the getting it for free thing.
Sure.
Mind you, one of my good girlfriends has now been in a relationship with someone extremely high profile, very, very like top
juicy.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear about it off air.
and they've been together for like over 2 years, and they didn't meet in that context, but he another girlfriend who worked had gone to her boyfriend and said like doxed her basically because she got doxed. So then she's like, I'm going to pay the dox forward.
Oh,
Crazy.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was a lot of drama. And so
What is doxing for anyone new?
Doxing is outing a sex worker. So it's when you decide to reveal their identity.
Yeah.
Which is awful. Happened to me.
So some women don't show their full face.
Yeah.
Most women have fake names. All women, sex workers have fake names.
Yeah, or they're in the WhatsApp chat, so it's like
right
to prove.
Yeah.
But her now boyfriend, they had an honest conversation about it. They were, newly dating at the time. And it's been a great kind of bonding thing.
Wait, you lost me. He originally did not know that she was.
He didn't know. He
Okay.
had heard like rumblings about it, but then he was straight up told.
Yeah.
So then he brought it to her, and it made them a lot closer. It was amazing, and now they make jokes about it, and it's like they'll talk about the.
But she stopped doing it.
Yeah, she was like, "Listen, also, if you like, I am doing this because I need the money.
Right?
Like this is my
Do you want
career.
to give me
and then and you can
$10,000
more than afford it. So it's like, so then he's like, okay, that's fair. Like, so I was like, that's great.
Love that negotiation tactic. So yeah, another thing I want to say that like I probably need to do a little bit more research on to speak eloquently about it. But like from what I know, there were more like busts and arrests around this stuff in the 90s and early 2000s. Like from what I'm gathering, there are not a lot of arrests and busts unless there is like trafficking or drug smuggling or like your average sex worker is not getting like arrested. Neither is the John. Yeah. Like, is that what you?
Yeah. So back then it was pandering, right? And soliciting. So like Heidi Fleiss and, the madam scene. Now it's funny. Madams are now bookers. Like we don't use the term madam anymore.
Right.
So the language has changed. And there probably was still a lot of trafficking happening back then, but we didn't have the language for trafficking back then. So that
it all kind of got squished
it's all
together.
kind of interchangeable, right? But yeah, there's people have a misunderstanding around what the risks actually are being a sex worker. So if we're talking about like the mid to high level escort, which this is pretty much what this is all referring to, it's not what the street level sex workers or minority sex workers are faced with the same issues, which is like really health and safety. Yes, that exists for, women in mid to high level as well, but it's more like the identity piece, the being doxxed, the being blackmailed. Like I know, I know a few women that were outed by clients or bookers. Wow. Like they would see a client behind the booker's back and the booker just would go postal, or a client, they wouldn't want to see a client anymore. And I know one girl, a friend of mine, where the client wrote her parents, which is awful. The stories I have are crazy. So that's really where it comes, because you can't go to the police and say, I'm being blackmailed, as a hooker. Like this is, my client, and these men are also in very high positions of power, usually the ones that are doing this because they feel like they're invincible, right?
For sure.
So that's where the real risk is, which is less like, you're going to get shot on the street that's not what we're talking
also,
about.
This also speaks to like the need for decriminalization. Like there are weird rules, the Nordic model, all of it sucks. Like it needs to be decriminalized, not legalized, but decriminalized, because if a sex worker, let's say, is sexually assaulted, like she cannot just walk into the police station like that. That could put her at risk, but she should be able to do that. Yeah.
And there's such a mass misunderstanding around publicly around consent in sex work.
Right.
Like, luckily for me, I have never had a non-consensual experience in that line of work.
Yeah.
I certainly did in my real life many times, right? Yeah. And so what people fail to realize is that sex workers have extremely staunch boundaries. And just because you're paying them for that, like there's a list, there's like what's on the menu, right? Which is either literally on like women's profiles, or they talk about that in advance. So it's like, it's pretty vanilla unless it's negotiated, right?
1,000%.
Certainly doesn't mean you show up into a room and then there's like 5 guys there and that's okay because you're getting paid for the hour. That's not how it works.
No.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Getting into scandal number 2, Hollywood. Heidi Fleiss, the Hollywood Madame. So this one is fucking fascinating, and I would love to have her on the pod. So I'm going to share a little bit about it, and then we will debrief. Heidi Fleiss gained notoriety in the early 1990s after running one of Hollywood's most elite escort operations. Dubbed the Hollywood Madame, she initially worked for Beverly Hills Madame Elizabeth Madame Alex Adams, that's a long name, before launching her own high-end prostitution ring by around 1990. Even that terminology feels a little outdated.
Phonetically, just it's like so funny.
High-end prostitution ring. Like she just connected clients with girls. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Her operation, however, was massive, allegedly earning up to $100,000 in a single evening and catered to wealthy clients and celebrities. In April 1993, Los Angeles police arrested Fleiss in a sting. By 1994, she faced both state charges for pandering, which was later overturned, and federal charges for tax evasion and money laundering. In September 1996, Fleiss pleaded guilty to federal charges and received a 7-year sentence, serving 20 months in the Federal Correction Institution in Dublin, California. She was released to a halfway house on November 19th, 1998, and completed 370 hours of community service. Okay, got really specific there. Anyways, since her release, she has reinvented herself multiple times. She's authored memoirs like Pandering, The Player's Handbook, appeared in reality TV, and pursued other various business ventures. So here's the rumor. Rumor has it that the following names were in Heidi's Rolodex of clients: Jerry Springer, Eddie Murphy, Tiger Woods. Those names included also actors Johnny Depp, Star Wars creator George Lucas, Hugh Hefner, Billy Idol, O.J. Simpson's defense attorney Robert Shapiro. So those are just alleged.
Yeah.
Those are just alleged.
Like, just let me interject for a second. Yeah. If you get paid to fuck Johnny Depp in the 90s, like, you're going to tell me that none of you would do that? No one's like, are you kidding me? Like, we would all pay him, I'm sure. So it's like, people don't really realize.
Oh, I know. There's such the stigma that they're like all old fat men. Like that's such a thing. And it's like, actually, they're people that want boundaries, and they usually want something that feels a little more compartmentalized and transactional.
Yeah. I also like to ask men, like, would you, if you could get paid to have sex with like...
Oh, they all say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they don't, I'm like, you're lying, so that's fine.
Yeah. And I was watching a YouTube video about her earlier today, and like, she was like living at the Beverly Hills Hotel and like going to these lavish parties. She was like 22, and like she was very young. She was in her 20s when she started this, I believe. And it's just fascinating. I don't have a whole lot else to say on this.
She's a Capricorn. Her birthday is the day before mine. I'd like to say that. But she was the first big name that I heard. When I heard prostitution for the first time, I'm pretty sure it was like Heidi Fleiss was attached. She was in the media all the time because she also was like a high roller. Like you'd see her, she'd be at parties, she'd be at Hollywood parties, she'd be at events all the time. Like she was a socialite, right?
And she was a woman, which was unique. I think when a lot of people think of like pimps and these prostitution rings, they think of men and they think of exploitation. But like nowhere in my research on here did I see anything about exploitation.
All the madams, which are now the bookers, like still to this day and age, but back then too, they're women. They're freaking women. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's no mention of her being like shitty to these women that I saw. Like it was like, I mean, maybe, but like, it's just interesting when a woman is doing it.
I wanted to see this documentary that was made about her. I didn't have a chance yesterday, but I did watch the trailer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a client or an ex-boyfriend of hers or something.
I was saying they hated her.
Yeah. That says like she's like the scariest person. But it was none of the women.
No, none of the women said that.
None of the girls. It was just, and I was like, that's
maybe
pretty badass.
Protected her women from crappy men.
Like, and you do have to be a certain personality type to like, for men to trust you with this, and for you to not get fucked over and to be safe, right? Like you cannot be a pushover. You do have to be pretty calloused and hardcore, or else that industry will run you down.
Yeah, and this kind of brings me to a point we discussed in prepping for this, was just like talking about the level of secrecy and trust, especially when there's like celebrity involved. It's like, it's just the level of trust there. I mean, celebrities, everything they do, especially now, is so monitored and tracked.
Yeah. So it's like, so if you're a single, actor or politician, or anyone, with social status, high social status that's in the limelight, what do you do when you're horny? What do you do?
Yeah.
You're
going to kind of get fucked either way.
Well, and it's like a lot of these men too, they work very hard. They don't want to go to the club or the bar. They're not even like, this goes with the whole, like, they're not big drinkers or doing a ton of drugs. Like, yes, there are some that do that, but like, not really.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, where do you go? And like, how can you trust that your private life is going to be kept private? You can't.
Well, and if you get some hottie on Raya to come over, like, that's going to be potentially on the news too. Like, oh, he's dating this girl. Then, like, Jesus Christ.
One of my girlfriends, God bless her, she matched with like Ben Affleck on Raya, and he sent her the most absurd messages, like video messages, hysterical.
Oh.
But she made it a TikTok thing.
Oh, damn.
Which I mean, honestly, like, rightfully so. But like, that's something that like
nothing is private.
Yeah, an escort like wouldn't do. There's a code of conduct there, right? A mutual respect.
Yes.
Mutual privacy. And it's like, so that's what goes back to the radical intimacy thing, that anything shared in that context is like, it's already transactional as a foundation. So then there is this kind of relationship that happens with like the celebrity or the politician and the escort, where they feel like, neither of them are really understood by civilians to the masses.
Right.
So they connect in like behind closed doors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully the current madames of Hollywood are getting away with it and everyone's just having a good time.
Yeah.
Moving on to Hugh Grant. So this was interesting. I had not heard about this one. I was also 3 years old, so fun. On June 27th, 1995, just before the premiere of 9 Months, I saw this earlier today. I think it was literally a week before movie premiere of his.
Like 7 days.
Yes. Yeah. A week before a movie of his came out,
Hugh
Grant was arrested in Los Angeles for engaging in lewd conduct with Estella Divine Brown, a sex worker in his BMW on Sunset Boulevard. That's so Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Tabloids unleashed and sensationalized headlines began. Hugh's sorry now. Hugh blows it with hooker, and captured his apology tour on The Tonight Show, where he famously opened with, "What the hell were you thinking?" Grant entered a no contest plea, paid about $1,100 in fines, and agreed to 2 years summary probation plus an AIDS education program. Divine Brown faced similar penalties: probation, a fine of $1,300. So look, the sex worker pays more, and a 180-day jail sentence for parole violation. Okay. He and then girlfriend Elizabeth Hurley showed up at the 9 Months premiere just days after his plea, signaling a public resurgence and effectively sidestepping the scandal cycle. Instead of career-ending fallout, the incident came to be viewed as a masterclass in crisis management. Grant's candid, humorous approach, backed by Hurley's solid public presence, won public sympathy and reaffirmed his charming persona. This became known as one of the greatest PR saves of all times. Rather than disappear after the scandal, Grant leaned into his mistake with authenticity and humor, turning potential tragedy into a redemption triumph. So I was watching a couple of things you sent me about this morning. And like, I love what was mentioned on one of the more recent interviews he did, where he was reflecting back on it, of like, he basically called out the bullshit of
he was like, I didn't apologize.
I know. Well, that was funny too. He basically called out how like, nowadays, everyone is weaponizing mental health as an excuse for doing like lewd shit.
Yeah.
He was like, I didn't say that I had like a sex addiction or like whatever. Like, I didn't like make it this. He just said he did something stupid.
Yeah.
Like, how, okay, what if we're just honest? Maybe we could sidestep these horrendous scandals.
And it was so disarming. And that's why it worked. And I, just in my experience, like, when I got doxxed and then after my initial breakdown, but then I just leaned into it, and like, people almost love it. They think I'm like so relatable and so authentic. And I'm like, this is so weird. Do you
want to share briefly about what happened? Because I think doxing can look really different.
With me? Yeah. So I
please see our full length interview to hear the full story.
Click the link below. I was doxed. I was outed by my friend's boyfriend.
Who had been cruising.
Who had been trying to sleep with me for quite some time.
Oh, God.
Had a substance problem and was a violent person and violent in the relationship. And he was clearly looking to hire an escort.
Right.
And he came across my ad, even though you could not see my face. And he sent it to everyone. He showed it to everyone and anyone that would look, that would listen. Meanwhile, I didn't know this was going on. So we'd be like out. We were at a friend's birthday at the same time, like, not that many people. And I find out like, much later that he had gone up to everyone at the party and showed them. Yeah, right when I was there talking to him like a normal person. Oh, so I found out probably a couple months after that, a girlfriend, she still didn't tell me that's what had happened. She's like, just so you know, there's this
months went by.
Yeah, and she didn't tell me that he had shown her either. Because everyone was like colluding. It was bizarre.
Wow.
And my girlfriend, who also was a sex worker, but never even admitted that to me, but I knew. And so I had a total panic attack, went to the hospital. Oh. And I always thought if that ever happened, I would end my life. Because when I had gotten back into it, because I was in like flux in my career, and I was going through clinical depression, which I'd never been through. So I couldn't even get out of bed. And I let my other company go to the wayside. I just couldn't work. I could not work. Which I would always like, whenever anyone would tell me about clinical depression, I was like, oh, suck it up. Like, I was like, get over it. Like, we all go through hard times.
Until it hits
clinical depression is very different than circumstantial depression.
Yes.
And I was on a bunch of
I'm going through the circumstantial kind.
Yeah. Every damn day. And so the only thing I could do to like literally like pay the bills, well, I couldn't even think of a thought. I couldn't, I didn't know what my next move was.
Yeah.
Every day was like white knuckling. Like if I could just make it to bedtime, then like I won't end it. So I was already in that state. So then I got back into it.
And you were doxxed.
Yeah. And then so miraculously, it was like a rebirth. Like, it was like a day later where I was like, I know exactly what I want to do. Like, I want to go back to school. I want to become a sexologist. I want to work with people. Like, there's so many women I know and men that are shamed around their sexuality.
Yeah.
Like, I want to work with this piece.
Yeah.
So it was thank you, insert name. I can't wait to say his name one day. I really can't. But like, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Like
what a blessing.
Your greatest purpose often comes from like what you perceive to be your greatest pain. But yeah, back to the Hugh Grant thing. I found it hysterical. Yeah, he immediately went on Jay Leno when he was on the press tour for the movie.
That's what it was.
And so Jay Leno says like, what the hell were you thinking? And he didn't apologize. He didn't. He was like, I
did something stupid.
He was really funny. He was really funny and charming too.
Yeah.
And then he did an interview, I think in 2013, I sent you that one as well, where they brought it up like a retrospective. Yeah. And he was like, when you apologize, he's like, and he made it very clear. He's like, I never said sorry. He's like, I never. He wasn't apologizing.
Yeah. What would have I?
Like, it would have been to Elizabeth Hurley. Like, but that was, but like that was their own thing. Like, she made her own decision. And like, I know they were together, I think for like 13 years or something. So who knows what was going on.
I think now what happens is an influencer is called out for doing something stupid. They disappear from social media for like a week or two. They hire a crisis PR firm and then they put up a fucking single typed out page about how sorry they are. And then they like enter therapy. And it's just like, it's super performative at this point. And I haven't seen that about hiring a sex worker, but just in general, people say something racist or stupid. And then it's just this whole like predictable cycle of trying to reclaim their audience.
And that's also something I never did. Like, I don't regret it. I would not be where I am today with my career if I didn't go through all of that. Like, I love it. Like, I'm like, I love that story. I love that whole narrative.
The great redemption arc.
Like I wouldn't be good at working with male clients if I wouldn't have a clue that wouldn't
working with male clients as a coach.
Yeah.
To clarify.
Yeah, exactly. Just to clarify now. Because men would come to me that clearly had performance anxiety or erectile issues or, delayed ejaculation. And I didn't even know the names for this at the time, right? But like, my job, as I knew it, was to attune to men in whatever way possible. And these men did not feel safe going to a partner or like a girl that they're just starting to date. So there was this disarming element, right, that started to happen. And I would see that like effective change. So now that I have the language to put around it and I have the formal education, that's such an important piece that I had that lived experience.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Also, I find it hilarious that, not hilarious, but just like, the sex worker for Hugh Grant.
Divine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was Black.
Yes.
And so AIDS, mandatory AIDS education.
No, I know. I thought
what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, seriously?
I know. Yeah, I know. Okay, moving on. Skeet Ulrich. Is that how you say it? His name. This was your suggestion.
Yeah,
I don't literally know who he is.
Like, where were you? You were around in the 90s.
I was a baby.
He was a heartthrob.
Okay. Skeet Ulrich. So in August 2020, Skeet Ulrich, known for Scream in Riverdale, and model Megan Blake Irwin ended their relationship. Weeks later on Instagram, Ulrich posted a striking black and white selfie. A fan asked why they broke up, and it's funny that ChatGPT said a striking black and white selfie. Okay. A fan asked why they broke up, and he responded bluntly, because I found out she's a prostitute. He later reaffirmed the remark, stating that she, quote, pretended to be something they aren't for their own gain and was sleeping with people for money. So the more research I did, it said, beyond Ulrich's statements on Instagram, no credible sources or reports confirm that Irwin worked as a sex worker. Investigative outlets haven't found background evidence, so it remains an unverified claim from him alone. Yeah, so...
Well, that goes again with the Hollywood model, the unlisted,
Right.
It's very easy to hide in plain sight about that.
Totally.
But yeah, I remember when that all happened, because we have some mutuals. And it was crazy. And, this is where it gets tricky, because fuck that for him doxing her, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, also fuck that for her living a double life. Like, this is like,
if that was
where
true,
do you think that's gonna end?
Yeah.
I mean, something happened.
Yeah.
Right. And where do you think that's going to end? And it's really sad, because like I know a lot of women that do. And we were talking about this the other day, where I get really charged about it because I was doxxed beyond my control, but it was the best thing that's happened to me.
Right.
And my other girlfriend that went to our friend's, now boyfriend, did the same thing, which was not okay. But she was like, no, it's the best thing that happened to me.
Wow.
Does not give her agency to do that. But but like, it frustrates me, because the community that we've formed and the support that we give each other when we're able to speak about these things and share, and then we can develop as whole humans and not silo ourselves off, and we can actually give ourselves a chance at real relationships and real intimacy, like give ourselves a fighting chance. Otherwise, you're going to perpetuate this split, and it's going to be, you're going to short circuit. So it's like,
I think it's also a privilege to be able to be out, and okay to not want to be out. And I think you can also,
I mean, the dating part, like that's the line.
But I mean, you can also, no, you should not be lying. I mean, you don't need to, if you're going on vanilla dates, you don't need to disclose that on the first date. But like, if you're serious about someone, like, you can't have a secret double life. And you're also not going to be able to get away with that for super long.
So I have a lot of girlfriends that they're single, they're sex workers, and they're just like, they're very upfront about it. Yeah. I don't think, like, when I struggle with this, obviously it's a part of my past, but it's a big part of my story. Right. So when people ask, like, why, well, what do you do? I'm a sexologist. How did you get into that? It's like, I can't really not tell them everything. Yeah. But it's also, that's the tricky part. Like,
you also don't owe them that whole story. No, like that whole story on a first date or a second date, like, can feel like so
1,000%.
much. Like, you don't deserve all that
1,000%.
vulnerability.
So like, that's why I think it's always a good idea for sex workers to try some like A/B testing of like like if you're on a date, like, well, what do you think about, like, just bring up the subject of OnlyFans or something and see how they respond to that. Yes. But yeah, like it is always tough to figure out, well, when do you have that conversation? So I see a lot of women in LA that, like, they're single 1 minute, and then they meet a guy, and then all of a sudden their only source of income has been sex work. Right. They fall for this man, and they don't, like, they had no time to have a plan to, reconcile with what's going on. And then they're just like, oh, I just need to get this much money. I just need to get this. And then I'll leave, and then I'll leave. But it's like, if you've already started off that way, then it's like, what's the line? Right. And then they don't have these, that's where the boundaries come in. It's not about like the consent piece. It's like the internal boundaries.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, I also know sex workers in New York that, are in relationships, but like the man knows what they do. So I also want it to be known that that is possible.
There's
sounds too complicated for me personally.
There's this quote. What's the freaking movie? It was the big like sex work movie in the 80s. I think it came out my birth year. I forget the name.
I don't know.
Where these two women are at the brothel and they're talking. It's like, oh, did you break up with what's his name? She's like, yeah, you know, when we first started dating, I was like on this whole rah, you need to accept what I do. So then he did. And then I broke up with him because if he really loved me, he wouldn't let me do this. And I feel but that is the paradox. I experienced that where it's like, you know, I know a lot of women that do. It's like, I want to be accepted, but then you feel like, you feel like you also want to be claimed, right? So it's like, you don't really have an answer.
It's complicated.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, moving into our final Hollywood sex work scandal, and then we'll get into some other juicy stuff. Jason Itzler. So this is my first time learning about him as well. Okay, so nicknamed the King of All Pimps, Jason Itzler was an entrepreneur who ran one of the most infamous high-end escort agencies in New York City, NY Confidential, from 2003 to 2005. NY Confidential is a luxury escort agency providing model-caliber women for wealthy clients, charging $1,500 to $2,000 per hour. Its most famous escort was Natalie McLennan. Is that how you'd say it?
I think
McLennan. So. Its most famous escort, Natalie McLennan, aka Natalia, became a media sensation, earning a perfect 10 out of 10 rating on escort review sites and becoming the face of the brand. He went on shows like The Howard Stern Show, this was insane to me, while operating NY Confidential, bragging about the beauty of his escorts and how much they earned per hour. Well, it didn't. It led to his bust. So in interviews, he openly discussed how much clients paid, what services were offered, and even gave interviews to New York Magazine and the New York Post while his business was still operating. Fucking stupid. NY Confidential's high profile drew the attention of law enforcement. In January 2005, Itzler was arrested and charged with promoting prostitution and money laundering after an undercover operation. The raid exposed a detailed operation of recruiting, managing, and advertising sex workers under the guise of a legal entertainment business. At the time of his arrest, he was already on parole for a 2001 ecstasy smuggling conviction. He pleaded guilty in 2005 to promoting prostitution and money laundering. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. While behind bars, he continued to court media attention. He and McLennan had a wedding at Rikers Island, which he later annulled. After his release, he just sounds like a mess. What a fucking mess.
My nervous system's like,
I know. Like an ADHD drug addict, man. I know that.
I had clients like that. So
After his release, Itzler tried to relaunch his escort ventures, violating parole and getting rearrested in 2011. In 2012, he was convicted again for drug sales and parole violation and sentenced to 4 more years in prison. Oh my goodness. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. Natalia, she's from Montreal, I believe. But she was on the cover of like New York Magazine or the New Yorker. And that was a huge thing at the time. And it was the New Yorker?
New York Magazine.
Yeah.
The title of the article was The 2,000 an Hour Woman.
Yeah.
In 2005.
And we'll get into this in a bit, but she was like high value, high volume too.
Oh,
like so that was and I believe Jason, because he was like her booker. We'll just say booker because pimp's a weird word.
I know.
You know, he was having her booking her with 6 to 8 clients a night sometimes. And that was like when the days when, you had this still exists, but it's just less frequently the model where you had a driver and you would be up from you start at 9 p.m. and you go till sunrise.
Okay,
which
sorry
sounds
to
awful.
interrupt you. I meant to connect these two earlier.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about NY Confidential already at the beginning. So Ashley Dupree at one point also worked for NY Confidential.
Oh.
She was booked by Elliot Spitzer through Emperor's Club VIP, but Ashley Dupree also worked for Spitzer. So I wanted to double check that those two were tied. Yeah.
I wonder what the exclusivity was like for
right. I think they were separate times.
Yeah. Well,
so she worked for NY Confidential through 2005 until the agency's legal shutdown and his arrest.
So it's separate times.
I believe it was before. Yeah, so the connection laid the groundwork for her to transition into the infamous Emperor's Club VIP, which is what was involved with Elliot Spitzer.
Yeah. What's interesting too is this was when it was all agencies, bookers. Now there's so many independent sex workers, and that's where the real money is. You're
not giving a cut. What's a normal cut to give to a booker or an agency?
20 to 30%. Some go as high as 40. But there's since it's more of a public conversation now.
Yeah.
Women are knowing their worth and knowing what the numbers really are. Before, it's like you wouldn't even know that, of the other girls that in the agency, you wouldn't even know who else was doing it. So there was no kind of formality around the process there. But yeah, the independent escorts that I know, especially in New York, they're the most successful ones are in their mid to late 30s. They're, they're not supermodels by any means. They're like pretty, but they're not like drop dead. Like it could be any girl on the street that you see walking. It's like, oh yeah, like you're not looking twice.
Yeah.
And they make the most money. Like, and again, they're just high value, low volume.
Yeah.
And like they were all in it maybe in their mid-20s too, but they're just appreciating in value. So this completely contradicts what we're told in evolutionary theory, that women depreciate as we age, right?
Well, it also goes against this like kind of porn narrative of like the most valuable girl in the porn industry is the 18-year-old.
Well, it's teens and MILFs, and MILF slightly surpasses the Pornhub search for the past like several years.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really contradictory.
I mean, I know this as a mommy dom. Yeah. I know this.
Yeah.
But that's fucking wild.
So it's like,
so you were talking about how this woman, Natalia, Natalie, or wait, Natalie, but also AKA Natalia, like that. It sounds like that article had a big impact on you, because it made you see like it's not about like aging out of this.
It's not about aging out of this, and then from what I remember too, she didn't apologize for anything.
Good.
She was very much like, these were decisions I made. I'm not traumatized from it. Yeah. And that's they want our trauma story. That's what the public is always asking for. Like,
have you been assaulted? What are these ugly clients?
What led you to this? Like, at what point did you decide I'm going to be a prostitute? What happened? Like, what did your dad do to you? And I believe Ashley Dupree said that she had come from like a broken home or something, and then I think her mother disputed that.
Oh, interesting.
And she only said that initially because honestly, what would you do at 22 when you're blasted in the media? I'd probably say something like that too. I want to give them a story. I wouldn't know how to handle that.
Right. Fuck no.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, the media isn't getting off on the sober hour-long client that has vanilla missionary sex.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just wants to spoon,
Okay. So on the screen, I'm going to edit in a graphic of the horarchy, which we're about to talk about. However, Coral needs to take a moment to talk about her future husband, Theo Von.
I just want to say my future husband.
She just really needs to insert him into this episode.
Well, because I told you when we first started talking about doing this, I was like, you need to watch the Theo Von episode where he has an escort on.
Yeah. It was a while ago.
It was, I think 5 or 6 years ago. And he was very open about his experience with sex workers because he has like intimacy issues, don't we all? And that, he felt safer in that context. Like then, and of course, as his star is like risen as well, it's a lot safer for him to be in that setting. Right. But he was speaking about his past when he was really into drugs as well. But he's very like much pro sex work and a very like curious guy where he had this woman on. It was hilarious. She had her sunglasses and her hoodie. So it's like not much of a disguise. And I was like, do I know this woman? Have I worked with her at some point? And she was extremely intelligent, very eloquent, well-spoken. And they had a really honest conversation. So it's like, I love that he shed light to like the celebrity side of things, of like humanizing the sex worker. And he was like, I've been wanting to have this conversation with a woman in this field for a very long time. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool because, there were certainly some famous clients that I had. One of them in particular, another comedian, awesome. We just swapped playlists all the time. Like we swapped playlists. It was so normal. Like, he was sober and would like have, coffee and just mostly like shoot the shit.
I think the client is so often vilified too. And it's like, they're not heinous.
They're lonely.
People. Yeah.
So a lot of them are like, that's a very
humans are lonely. Like in the last 100 years, like we've gone from communal creatures to like,
exactly.
We're all very fucking lonely. And
I'm going to talk about the celebrity loneliness epidemic.
For sure. Oh my God. Another thing Theo mentions when he talked about hiring sex workers in the past, like, he mentioned like a lot of drug use. So there wasn't necessarily like an erection involved, but it was like the companionship.
It's like
he was literally like, my friends didn't want to hang out with me.
He could be any version of himself or or all versions, right? Like in day to day, we all silo ourselves off. We're pursuing different personas and we're having to switch constantly. Like who I am on this podcast is different. Like who I am off this podcast is different than what I'm like with a girlfriend versus my mom versus whoever.
Yes.
And it gets really tough when you have all these different personas, and that's amplified as anyone that's famous, obviously.
Oh, God.
And so sex workers also have that. Like, we adapt the horror persona, but we're also the Madonna. And what I always find interesting is that what happens so often is a client would come to you as the whore, but then they would end up seeing you as the Madonna as well, and would kind of reconcile that internalized split that they had.
Yes.
Because you would end up also being nurturing to them and maternal, but then you'd also have like crazy sex if you like, so they were able to see all parts of you, which I think is what we're lacking as humans in general, is that we don't want to embrace each other for all of our parts. Right. And in that environment, you can be exactly who you are.
That's beautiful. Don't go away yet though. Like, cause I know we're about to talk about the hierarchy, which sounds kind of boring. Actually, it sounds pretty cool. But we are going to also talk about Emily Ratajkowski, and we're going to talk about Miranda Kerr. So we're not done with the tea. So just, bear with us over the next 10 minutes where we talk about the hierarchy. So you can probably see this on your screen because I'm going to superimpose it. Yeah. Let's talk about, we made our own version of the hierarchy because the ones I found on Google were just not doing it.
Yeah.
So why don't you, Coral, talk a little bit about the pink triangle?
Yeah. So the hierarchy is it's like the hierarchical structure of sex workers. And that's the idea that some are more socially accepted than others. So at the top, we've got our virtual sex workers, which that's like our
camming OnlyFans.
I would say predominantly OnlyFans, right? There's even tiers of virtual, right? There's there's like different sub.
Well, I had a Patreon before I started an OnlyFans to like ease my way
kind of guise yourself.
Because I didn't want to tell people I had an OnlyFans. Yeah. That came with its own stigma.
Yeah.
Which I'm really bad about hosting on and I'm deleting. But.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. And then you go into sugar babies because that's a very concealable thing. Which the interesting thing about sugar babies is like you have your anonymity. So like you don't have your anonymity with virtual, but no, lots of sugar babies have their anonymity.
Oh, I always use my real shit.
A lot of them, I mean, there's listed and there's unlisted. And then there's like fake names and there's,
That's true. I know. I always use my real
tons
name.
of women, that was their gateway to sex work.
Yes.
Or they just stayed in the sugar baby thing. But what you don't have is any sort of formal structure there. So it tends to be the most dangerous form of sex work, which is what women don't realize and people don't realize, because these men are often really cheap and quite sociopathic, where they actually like want to believe that it's a relationship, or they're well aware that it's a transaction, but they don't want to pay for the full thing. So you'll make far less usually.
Yes. So the escort that Theo Vaughn interviewed said the exact same thing. And then a woman I just interviewed, Erin, said the exact same. I mean, and I've done sugar babying and like had the same experience. Like it's so maddening the way that people are treated. And the way that I always explain sugar dating is like you have the two most, in some cases, not all the cases where it's an experienced shitty guy, but you have two people that are inexperienced with negotiating sex work. And the women don't want to bring up the money. The guys don't want to bring it up. Like when I was doing it, it would be like, I'd be like, okay, well, nobody's going to like do less than $500 for a meet. And then I would like go get coffee with the guy and he'd be like, yeah, so I paid $200 every time we see each other. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. So yeah, sugar dating is messy. If you're listening and interested, I don't suggest it.
I want to add quickly, one of my close girlfriends, that was her first experience in sex work, which was, I think, 19.
Oh God.
And
it's a lot of really young college age women that do that.
And very similar to, like, he said he was going to give her, I think, like $2,000 or $3,000 a month. And then it turned into like, I think he gave her 500, and then, but he would always dangle the carrot, right? So you're always like, is this the time I'm going to get more? But like, you're not having a transparent conversation because it's sugar dating. It's not just we're meeting for the hour.
Well, and sometimes men will just be like, I'd love to just like buy you some lingerie. And it's like, I literally had on my profile, I could buy my own lingerie.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I'm here for money.
And so he did some awful, awful things to her. And, one night, had her come over and all of his friends were there, and she didn't say no, but this is where it gets tricky, right? But like, she didn't have the language, she didn't know her own boundaries, she didn't know how it worked. She's like, well, I did, I guess, consent to being with him, so not realizing that is not okay.
No.
And so that's where sugaring gets really tricky with boundaries, and a lot of the women don't have them going into it.
Okay, so below sugar babies, despite all the shit talking we just did, like, that is still societally perceived up there
as more acceptable.
Like, it's more acceptable. Or it's like, oh, we all sugar dated in college this one time. Like, I have a lot of girlfriends that just like tried it once kind of thing.
Yeah.
Below that would be stripping and BDSM, dominatrix, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, with that, so you're in the public eye, but it's more respected than the other two that we just talked about.
And there's not explicitly penetrative sex.
Exactly. That's the key thing.
It's sexual.
That's the key thing. But then even, again, there's like layers of strippers. Like there's an 11 in Miami where these women are like internationally trained, incredible dancers. Some
crazy
like
shit.
Wild. And then there's like the roadside strip club. So that's very different.
Well, and I've heard that there is penetrative or full service sex work in strip clubs, even in New York. I've heard some crazy shit about some strip clubs
absolutely.
Here. Like, there's a back room and they're high dollar and but for now we're talking about non-sex.
Well, I mean, if we just think about Nora, that just came out.
Oh God.
Where it was still really blurry around that because she was a stripper, but then they called her a hooker and an escort. Then she got paid by the guy that she ended up marrying and all this. So it's like the lines are blurred, but publicly it's like, there's no penetrative sex. That's kind of like,
so you're not doing as nasty of a thing.
Yeah.
Porn.
Yeah. So porn has changed a lot over the years, right? We used to have porn stars. It was just porn stars. Like, no one would enter porn without being a porn star. Right? It was few and far between. Like, we go from like the Nina Hartley. God, I love that woman. I think she's so hot. I
don't know who she is.
Well, you're gonna do your homework. To like the Jenna Jamesons and all of that and the rise of like the porn star in the 90s. And then in like,
I recognize Nina Hartley. Yeah.
You've seen her work. In the early 2000s.
She's old now.
You should have her on. She would be amazing.
She's great.
She's awesome.
Sorry, I said you were old.
And then in the early 2000s, we saw the rise of like Girls Gone Wild and amateur porn. So these women would enter it very young, like at 18, and they thought they would glorify it. They would wait to make what they thought really good money really quickly.
They were looking at porn star money.
Yeah, and then it got so oversaturated, and that didn't happen. So their shelf life was like a couple years, and then they'd be fucked because they got into it for the wrong reasons with the wrong people. We're talking about like Craigslist ads when that was still a thing for like soliciting, right?
Yeah.
And so, but then now you're seeing the rise of like the autonomous porn star that's also like very public with their boundaries. There's a lot that have become intimacy coordinators that have their own podcasts that also do OnlyFans. So that's really merged, right?
So why is porn below societally? Like, so by the way, as we go down this pyramid, this is less perceived societal value.
Because it's an oversaturated market. So in porn, you still have the Riley Reids, like a few, big porn stars.
Yeah.
But generally, it's just like, it's seen as kind of a last resort, like, profession.
But why is it less? I also feel like it's like less than... But I feel like it's more respected than escorting because they're
open about it. Because they're open about it, and people
and their faces all over the internet.
And people demand your truth, right? So it's like society. It's like if you're not hiding, they're not looking to dox you. Like that's the thing. That's the weird thing about society is they feel entitled to your story and your truth. So a porn star that's face out, it's like, well, we already know what this is. It's easy for them to assess, right? They can make sense of it. They don't really care. But then we go into escorting and it's like the undercurrent of society, like the underbelly of society.
Yeah. And also like it's almost like every time they're having sex, there's like proof of it, footage of it. So like escorting would be below that because it's like, who knows how much they're doing? Who knows how many times they're...
You know, and I'm friends with a couple porn stars, a few actually, like really good friends. And they were friends with the same people that are friends with the same people I know in LA. And while I was a closeted escort, like they were like totally out and open and, you know, and no one cared. Like they were able to be public about everything. No one cared, asked them or sensationalized them. Mm-hmm. But then these are the same people that would shame escorts.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So now in our own version of the hierarchy, which we have not seen, well, we saw in one other place, we put low volume, high cost escorts above high volume, low cost escorts. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'll, of course, pertain it to personal experience as I do with everything. But when, you know, there's different tiers of income and sex work. So when you start, a lot of bookers want you to go at like a lower hourly rate. Like we're talking.
Well, you need to build up your clientele.
Yeah, like $400 to $600.
Yes.
Which I think is stupid and doesn't work because I think that it's all perceived value. But like I said about the older sex workers. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. But the bookers they're going to make money no matter what. So they want volume. So that's like the high volume and the low rate, which is how a lot of women start. And a lot of women stay there too, which is sad because I want to be like, no, you could do so much better. It's all perceived value.
For reference to like based on what I've seen on like a website like Tryst, like you could hire a sex worker today as a client for anywhere between like $300 and $1,500 an hour.
Oh,
like there's
no, like $3,000 an hour. Like I have a couple girlfriends that are
but
like $3,000
in general.
And it's like it's so funny because they're like, let's see, like it's like fuck you money. It's like let's see what I can get away with. Like we're just fucking like let's just make it this number and see what happens.
Damn,
and it works.
Good for them.
So then you have the low volume, high cost, right?
Yes.
So what I did was I started at like a mid-range with the booker. And then I was like, I don't fucking want to see that many people. Not that I ever really did, but I was like, I need to be making more for doing this way less.
For sure.
So I created another identity and I had my high rate persona, did that independently to diversify. Then I would convert my clients from the lower rate and then be like, no, I'm this persona now.
Yeah.
And it worked. So
I love a businesswoman.
Yeah.
And then so kind of at the bottom of the hierarchy, we'd have street-based sex work, which, I mean, that's just like how it's perceived societally.
Yeah. I want to go back though to the full service for a second and say, it's why it's so low is because society thinks that, again, they're entitled to your truth. So because it's not spoken out loud,
and your identity might be separated.
Yeah, it's totally vilified, right? So people make that the lowest form. They shame you the most for that, like, which is just crazy to me. And then you have your street-based sex work, also known as like survival-based sex work, right? But what's interesting is that we're looking at the hierarchy there, but then there's all these other factors, and you've created these other graphics.
Yes, thank you. So as Coral and I have been chatting about this the last few days, we've also, and we're going to kind of get into it as we talk a little bit more about this gray area sex work stuff. But basically, we noticed a pattern. So there's also this thing kind of going alongside this other triangle of if you're generating a lot of money, it's perceived regardless. Yeah. Like you could be low on the triangle or high on the triangle. If you're high income generating, you have higher perceived societal value, whereas low income generating, it's lower.
So the 10 grand a night Dubai girl, I was telling about the big influencers. We're talking like the Fashion Nova girls, right? Like they're worth like some of them a few $1 million. Yeah. That's where their money's from. Right. Not from the Fashion Nova thing, from that, right? That's how they're getting their clients through Instagram. Yes. But they're worth a lot of money. So people don't really take a second look.
Question, judge. Yeah. So then the other one, which we'll get into in a moment, is people at the top who have high societal capital or pre-existing status. are at the top of the triangle, and at the bottom of the triangle are low social capital, no prior status or fame. So basically, if a high profile person or celebrity is like participating in sex work type stuff, they're not labeled as that because they're already kind of famous and in that category.
Yeah, which we're gonna get to because that's crazy.
Yes. Okay. So this story is fucking fascinating. I did not know of this, and I think it kind of speaks to what we just talked about of like, I see her as an influencer, I see her as a writer. So this also, that's how society sees her, and so it was not positioned this way. So I'm going to give a little bit of backstory on Joe Low, who is a Malaysian billionaire, but basically there is correlation with Emily Ratajkowski as well as Miranda Kerr and how he gave them money for stuff. So Joe Low is a Malaysian billionaire who remains a fugitive. He's wanted by Malaysia, the US, Singapore, and Interpol since 2016. I literally have to read the book about this guy. It's fucking crazy. So a Vice article states that the Malaysian Chinese businessman is regarded as one of the masterminds behind the 1MDB financial scandal that saw $4.5 billion stolen from Malaysia's state office, resulting in the collapse of former prime minister's, not going to say his name, the former prime minister's government in 2018. I don't know how to pronounce it. For his part in one of the largest incidents of official corruption. In an interview with the Sunday Times to promote her memoir, Ratajkowski revealed that she was paid $25,000 to attend the Super Bowl with Low. I was on the clock, she said. The paper also quoted Ratajkowski as saying that she was unaware about what was expected of her during the date and was unsure of why she was there, how long she had to stay, and who her agent had to check with at the end of the night to find out whether she could leave. It sounds kind of scary. Yeah. There's a 2018 bestseller Billion Dollar Whale, which also details his life. This includes evenings in Las Vegas with Playboy playmates, as well as spending close to $1 million for a luxury date in Dubai, complete with a private helicopter, with Taiwanese starlet Elva Hassau. Not sure on pronunciation there. Famously, he also gifted millions of dollars worth of diamonds and jewelry to former Victoria's Secret supermodel Miranda Kerr, items she was forced to surrender to authorities as part of an investigation in the 1MDB scandal. So moving on to that a little bit more. So the way that they set this up, which I found so fascinating, is that Miranda Kerr and Joe Low were literally quoted as just being romantically involved in 2014. Hilarious. Shortly after she separated from Orlando Bloom and before she later married Evan Spiegel, the CEO of Snapchat. So the lavish gifts that he gave her, according to sources cited by Page Six and other outlets, Low gifted Kerr extravagant diamond jewelry during the relationship, including a heart-shaped 11.72 carat diamond worth $1.29 million, engraved with MK, an 8.88 carat diamond valued at $3.8 million, blah, 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 bringing the total to roughly $8 million. She obviously has returned them. Online gossip, allegedly, especially places like Reddit, also talk about her being a yacht girl. Okay, thoughts on those two gals and this crazy man?
Yep. So if we go back to our little triangle that we made there, it's a perfect example of status.
Pre-existing
status, plus money being the great equalizer. Then it's not even a conversation of what is this. But you're telling me that a Victoria's Secret supermodel who was married to Orlando Bloom in his prime, mind you, before marrying Evan Spiegel, you're saying that she just wanted to date this guy, this Malaysian billionaire. And if you look him up, no, that's not the case, right? But no one accuses her of anything in the media. There's a lot of money and power, right? So she's untouchable.
I didn't see the word sex worker anywhere.
So she's untouchable. Yeah. And that also brings me to the, hypergamy conversation.
Your fave.
I know. I'm like, I just been wanting to say this for so long, like erupting. Let's look at Harvey Weinstein's ex-wife, Georgina Chapman.
Oh boy.
One of the most beautiful.
It's whole own episode.
Yeah. One of the most beautiful women that you'll ever see. She's stunning. Okay. You don't think that she knew what he was up to? I knew. I have friends in the industry. Everyone knew what Harvey Weinstein was capable of before he was outed for everything. They knew. Everyone had a story. You don't think she got emails, text messages, anonymous messages? She absolutely did.
Yeah.
That aside, look at him and look at her, right? What is he known for? Money, power, status, access. He has all of that. That's why she was with him. Okay. So what is that? What are we calling that?
Right.
We're calling that a marriage. We're not calling that transactional anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he was outed with everything that, that he had done, she was like, I don't know, in Vanity Fair or something about like being a victim. I had no idea. She had 2 kids with this man, the most disgusting man probably to walk this earth. And they're just awful, like a horrific person known as being a rude asshole.
I never knew anything about her, to be honest.
And so that's the big question of like, I was selling my body. Like we're in an environment where I could control it, where I could leave at any time, where I'd go back to my life. Like there's a limited amount of time. You're selling not selling, but like you're giving your body and your soul for this.
Right. How is that not transactional?
So how is that not transactional? But we're accepting that. No one has said a bad word about this woman. Where I'm like, how could you know
I was
this?
shocked by
if
that.
I knew that, like as a sex worker, if I had found out that a client was treating women like that, we all band together and we like cancel him. We do everything we can to take someone like that down and make sure that we're all protected.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big difference, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's just an example.
I think a lot of relationships are transactional. I think a lot of Hollywood relationships are transactional, and like it's crazy.
Look at Melania. Melania, and then it's like we now it's this whole script flipped where it's like Melania Trump's so cool, like good for her, and I'm like, she's just another transactional marriage, like and no one's talking about what that is. Meanwhile, like the number of men I'm sure that have said like, oh, Coral's been an escort, that's disgusting, but we're accepting that you would sell your soul, your body to be with a horrific man like that. Okay, so I just find that absolutely baffling. And now Georgina Chapman, by the way, is with Adrian Brody, who's like Oscar-winning, super handsome actor. Mm-hmm. So it's like Harvey Weinstein wasn't her type. So I would just love to. I would love to like talk about this. I would love that to be a conversation that we have in society, where it's like, well, let's table all of it then. Yeah,
1000%.
Yeah.
Well, I would say like my biggest takeaways from today are just like, I do think we've come a decent ways in how the media specifically portrays some of this stuff. I mean, it's still not gracious. Like, a teacher or a fucking nurse has an OnlyFans and they can lose their job. Like this isn't gone. But I do think like the vilification of literally even changing from prostitute to sex worker, like we're incrementally getting better.
Yeah.
And I think some of the gray area sex work is fucking fascinating. And I think that it is much more prevalent all around us. Like I think that there are celebrities and musicians and actors that, date the type of girls you mentioned that would be in the WhatsApp chat. So they're not a sex worker because they don't have an OnlyFans in their bio, but they are behind closed doors. But when they get them, when the guy and her come together, maybe she stops doing the other sex work. And it's like, oh, how did he get that? Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like I see these couples come together and it's like,
how did they meet? In what world would that have happened organically?
Or like, what does she fucking do for money?
Yeah.
But now she's with him, so maybe that he's taking care of stuff. But what did she do before? Like,
and
mysterious.
And just it's really interesting. We've come a long way for sure. But I would just implore people in general, like if you're going to take anything away from this, like take a look at the hierarchy and like think about your own misconceptions, your own prejudices, and like what comes up for you. Yeah, because that's real, right? And your own biases. And then I implore you to like dig into that and look at hypergamy and these other forms of transaction, and what makes that okay, and why are we moralizing?
Right. I mean, I've even seen my own stigma against the hierarchy within myself of well, okay, before I tell a guy I've done BDSM stuff, I'm going to tell him I've done sugar dating, or I'm going to tell him I have a Patreon and then it's like I see myself of how I breach the subjects to see somebody's reaction, and then I share what I've really done. Like I see my own not judgment, but I see how I use the hierarchy to test somebody's comfortability level.
And I mean, which is kind of a good thing. Like it is a good thing. Like you said, like
before we give it all.
The A/B testing of like, is this safe for me to share more? But one last piece I want to say is I believe it was Ayla that spoke about this, because she has done virtual sex work and she's also done escorting. And a lot of my friends have done both of those. Same with porn stars. It used to be like, oh, porn adult stars do not do escorting. No one talked about it. And now there's a lot of crossover, and there was a lot of like, oh, we don't do that, right?
Right.
And
so even judgment within the hierarchy.
Oh yeah,
against each other.
Yeah. And so Ayla said like, OnlyFans was far more taxing and soul sucking than in-person sex work ever was. Mm-hmm. And I believe that because I've heard it a few times, right? Yeah. Because these are anonymous people interacting with you, and you're completely just an object. They're completely objectifying you.
It doesn't feel safe to me. I gave it a whirl for 6 months, and I didn't like the anonymity. I didn't like that this faceless person could send me these messages or requests, and then if I were to send them back anything, it just felt too vulnerable knowing that all of that footage and video, I wasn't even doing video, but all of that could exist out in the internet. Whereas like what's happening between two peoples in a private location is private to them. Not
to mention what these men that are chatting with you, if we're talking about OnlyFans, are saying. Like some of my really, really high top level OnlyFans girls are like, they're like, you'd be horrified. Like it's like you read that, you're not sleeping. You're not sleeping at night. Like the thing. So that's why they outsource to these chat services. It's not necessarily like, yes, it's also good for business, you know, because they don't have to do it themselves and they can afford it. But like
for their mental health,
they're not equipped. That's too much.
Yeah, and it's too many different men with different fetishes and fantasies and projections.
Yeah, and I have a bias against like high volume because I've done it and I don't think it's good for the soul.
Sure.
I don't think, when I was on your podcast last year, I spoke about in Amsterdam how women average seeing like, 15 clients a day, right? And
they're not making much money.
As a sexologist, where I work with clients now, energetically, I can't see more than like 4 clients a day, maybe 5.
As a coach.
Yeah. And so you're in person with these men, and that's the same energy exchange. And it's all about them and you attuning to them. So that's just not good for the soul. So I am biased there. Like I do still struggle with that because I'm like, sorry, I know better. Like I know better and I want to help you to know better.
Right. Yeah. Well, this has been riveting. Please let us know what you thought of the episode. If it were me as a listener, I would love this episode.
Yeah. We're going to run a shit ton of polls.
Just share more things, scandals, stories, and maybe we'll do another one.
That'd be fun.
If we can get together. And as you know, I'm pretty nerdy about sex work history. Maybe we could do a historical episode together.
Anthropology. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple, and or YouTube, as well as on Instagram at Seggs Talk Radio. That's Seggs, Seggs. And before you go, head over to testy.co to join the waitlist for our 2026 launch. We are reinventing same-day walk-in STI testing nationwide.